You're listening to Partnernomics Podcast, where we discuss the art and science of developing successful strategic partnerships. To learn more about the suite of Partnernomics solutions, visit partnernomics.com.
Welcome back to another episode of Partnernomics Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Brigman. And on today's show, we have Mr. Alexander Richards with us. So Alexander's going to be telling us about some cool stuff that he's done throughout his career. Man, he's had a wild ride just within the last year or so, and it's continuing on. But Alexander is the Senior Director of Alliances for Medallia. And we're going to learn a lot more about Medallia and Alexander's background here in this podcast. But Alexander, thank you so much for joining us today.
Appreciate you having me, Mark. It's great to be here and, excited to talk about my favorite thing in the world, which is partnerships. So, happy to be here.
Well, Alexander, a lot of people tell me that I have an accent. And your accent does not sound the same as mine. So I'm going to ask you, man, tell us about the travels.
The travels. Well, according to my parents, apparently I now sound like I'm from New Zealand. So it's an interesting ride. But originally from the UK, moved over here to New York about 7 years ago now. And my prior company was actually, prior before everything we'll talk about today was an Australian company. So my accent with, all my American friends and then Australians has sort of given me this weird twang. So I'm British. That's still a thing. But I've kind of gone through a hedge backwards. So yeah.
Awesome. So how in the world did you get into this world of partnering? I love to just hear people's story, but coming out of university, did you say, hey, I'm going to be a partnering professional, or which route did you take there? And then how have you, weaved your path into partnerships?
So it's been a bit of a wild ride. I wish I had been told that, you should have, done a law degree, or you should have done like engineering or something. And full stack engineers these days, those guys have got the right idea. But I decided to study music. Which actually led me to be in the music industry. So I was, working for what's now one of the biggest recording studio companies in the world, brushing shoulders with the likes of the Chemical Brothers, the Arctic Monkeys, Block Party, Natalie and Briley, all those types of people. And then when I realized that I was never going to be a famous record producer making their millions, I was like, well, I'm kind of a nerd. I really enjoy websites, coding, and all that sort of stuff, and that was sort of my game. And we worked a few jobs to save money in between, sort of kicking back into the tech industry, but ended up working at later down the line at Apple. Was a global trainer for them. So anyone that would come into the company would basically train them up on everything Apple retail and the corporate company. Also was involved in their systems and technology. And with that's when things started to sort of kick off. You started chatting to vendors, people we were partnered with. And that's when I kind of realized that somehow people were sort of attracted to talking to me. And then that's the thing that sort of happened. So I've been then went into advertising technology, worked for WPP, got to travel the world with those guys, and was building training and building alliances with people to make sure that things were being adopted. And then the interesting ride is when I joined Stella Connect, formerly known as Stella Service, back in beginning of 2018. And that was my first exposure to the startup world. And that's really when sort of the alliances adventure kind of went into 1,000%, and the rubber hit the road and things got really, really interesting. So that's kind of sort of the start of everything. It's taken a number of years, but that's where the fun started happening.
Well, there's so many of us now jumping into companies, working with companies that are in startup mode and then just continuing to grow. I think this is a really neat part of the story. Can you tell us a little bit? We'll kind of go almost chronologically, but start with Stella. Mm-hmm. What was Stella? How did you guys form it? What was it like being in that startup environment? What insights did you gain from being a part of that company and that experience that kind of eventually transcended through to Medallia?
Well, I think the first thing that was the strangest thing for me was this word startup. It was this buzzword that everyone uses, and I found out that a lot of people that you would go and interview with were all about coconut water and snacks, and I was like, what is this crazy world of scooters, snacks, and treats and stuff? And that was a little interesting at the time. But the thing that I really loved about the whole startup world was just this sort of family unit sort of approach to things, and that's what really attracted me to the Stella Connect team. And the interesting thing for me is that I've always believed in great customer service. I mean, being a kid, I've worked retail over the years, and it's one of those things that I think nobody's really done. Not nobody, but a lot of companies don't do well. And that's what drew me in. And with that, I met Geordie, our CEO at the time, and John, the co-founder as well. I was just sucked in by their enthusiasm to basically provide customer support agents with essentially feedback on how well they're doing, how to coach each other, how to train, and essentially do better. It's not like you're being told this is bad, do better. And it's like, well, how do I do that? That's a great thing for you to say, but you just hurt my feelings and I don't know how to do better. But also when things are going really well, like celebrate those successes. I think we always get focused on the negatives. So I was sort of drawn in by that. And then I think this mentality as well that, you know, we need to achieve growth, we need to push really hard. You have the ability to sort of mold something into the way that it could be and have a great impact was really important to me. And so when I came in, basically I realized that, you know, we had some gaps. We didn't have scalable, replicable integrations. We didn't have any partnerships. And it was all about us going out alone in this big $20+ billion market, just being these cool kids on the block. And that's where everything really started to happen. And I started working with the likes of Zendesk and Freshworks and Customer and Gladly and a number of other companies. And, you know, it was a rocket ship. When I first joined the company, we were at a certain revenue level. And then before we got acquired in September of last year, we tripled that. And that in 2 years was just phenomenal. So it's been a really interesting ride, but I think it's all about the people that you're with. And it's not always striving for perfection. It's the small little wins and pivoting that makes the greatest impact, rather than trying to just go, oh, we'll get there. And then nothing ever happens. So it's been definitely very interesting and fun, stressful, but it's been a good run, which has been nice.
Alexander, with Stella Connect, what was the core solution that you guys were providing to the market?
So originally when I joined, if you guys have ever, I don't know, had an order from Postmates and you've had to contact their support center, Warby Parker or Lemonade Insurance, people like that, we were known, and we still are known for this sort of very people-focused survey with a picture of a person, a little bio, essentially decoupling this sort of transactional brand approach where you have no sort of like soul to it, to being like, hey, you interacted with this human, this is this human, they're real. How did they do? Like, tell us honestly, let's see how we can sort of improve. And that was our bread and butter. And then about 2 years ago, roughly, we realized that quality assurance in the customer service and support industry was a big thing. And sort of our budget, because how niche our survey was sometimes being allocated in that bucket. So we then started working with a couple of really big gaming companies who were just like, well, if you can do this, this, and this, we'll work with you. And that sort of led us to have this more of a performance management suite in there. So it's essentially feedback, coaching, and quality assurance for frontline stuff. I almost forgot my elevator pitch there for a second. So.
You pulled it off though. Man, I'd love to go back and hit on a topic, really a word that you mentioned that it's kind of been an epiphany for me over my career, and that is it good to be a perfectionist? You know, so I spent 6 years in the Marines, and it's all about doing it perfect. And I think because of that experience, I had it drilled into my head that perfection was the only way to go. And then when I started my entrepreneurial career and jumped into businesses, doing this startup thing and growing businesses, if you are a perfectionist, you will be challenged, significantly challenged, to get your businesses to go and grow. And the finally I got it through my thick skull from many mentors who finally convinced me, hey, Mark, really the magic number is around 80%. If you're always 80% right, you are going to grow exponentially faster. Has that been your experience?
100%, or 80%, as you just said. I think it's having that balance, but I think that the other component to it is as well is this. I think there's two other things that come to it is trust, because you do have to delegate to people. A lot of people who are trying to strive for, what they hold as perfection, aren't usually willing to delegate or trust others to help them. That has been something way prior to these roles that I had to learn the hard way. And then also as well, there's also having a baseline. And because I do think as well, when you do collaborate with other people, you're always going to want somebody to be sort of doing things at your level. You have to trust them, you have to delegate, but you also have to express what the minimum is, because sometimes as well, if you can't communicate properly, there is perfection and there's sort of the midline, but then there's also making sure that other people are going to help, back you. And I think it comes down to treating people as how you'd want to be treated. If you just say, hey, I need this, then nobody's really going to be on your side. It's sort of like this sort of team effort and family effort that you have to drill into people as well. So yeah, being agile, being quick doesn't happen if you're going to spend months and months and months trying to aim for that, heavenly goal, basically. So yeah, I'm with you on that 100%.
Yeah, so true. All right, so Alex, so tell us a little bit about how we made the transition. How did we go from Stella Connect into Medallia, and what has that experience been like?
Wow, it seems like a long time ago now, but it was only 10, 11 months ago. So yeah, basically, we got acquired in beginning of September 2020 by Medallia. My phone lit up with a bunch of LinkedIn and Facebook messages. It turns out a bunch of people that I worked with at Apple in London, funnily enough, even though I live in the US now, actually worked with me at Apple as well. So everyone's like, oh my God, you're part of the family, woo, 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 all this sort of stuff, which was kind of fun. And yeah, I mean, it was basically, Medallia saw something in us, which I think we've always believed that we had a great product. We had some clients that really believed in us. The mentality of Stella Connect was always, it's not a transaction. It's about building and maintaining a very strong relationship with your clients. So our client base, 90% of them, we could literally call up and say, hey, you want to join a webinar? Could you do this marketing with us? And they'll be like, yeah, we've got you. We love working with you. We'd love to have it out there. And that's I think part of it. And I think also the credibility that we created for ourselves on our partner network as well. So that basically came about. We found out beginning of September, we're getting on this company-wide call we'd all have these little bottles shipped to us, and everyone's like, what is this? What are we celebrating? And then the news broke, and everyone was just super pumped about it. So it was a really, really fun experience. And I think with any acquisition, I think it's like when you buy a house, you go through something stressful in your family, there's a whirlwind of emotions, because you have this picture of perfection, or what you think something's going to be, but then there's all these other different components you don't think about. So I think it was just, when it comes to restructuring, where am I going to be? Who am I going to be reporting into? There are all the other things that were weighing on you. But the Medallia team's been really, really good throughout the process. Got some great colleagues that I work with, and some great customers we work with as well. So it's been very, very exciting. But it's just one of those things where you're never prepared for it. So yeah, I would say if anyone is going through an acquisition, stay in there. It's going to be okay. And just make sure you always have somebody to talk to, because it's always good to have those, that wall to, bounce ideas off of.
So Medallia, you guys are, man, it seems like just growing at a significant rate. It looks like upwards of 3,000 employees, or just growing significantly. What is it that Medallia does? So obviously much larger company than where you came from through the acquisition. Yep. What's that larger portfolio that Medallia offers?
So we're really customer experience in a nutshell. So basically the way to look at it is where Stella was a very contact center, feedback, quality assurance, that sort of stuff. We are basically all the other bits that come into it. So if you want to do much lengthier surveys or different surveys that measure different aspects of a business, we do that. We have some of the biggest clients in the world using our platform. We also have AI and ML backend to a lot of things as well, so we can surface a lot of insights, and really the Medallia suite is sort of like this hub for a number of different sort of modules and products we have. So speech analytics, text analytics, video analytics. That was the one that really caught my interest. I've never had somebody tell me that I look too happy or too sad on a video call, so that was enlightening. And then we have overall we're just going really, really hard against the in the contact center market right now. So it's a $20+ billion market. One of our recent acquisitions was Decibel, that does screen capture. Great team. And we're just really sort of building that suite and just making sure that we can offer the best in class tools to customers, because we always get compared to companies like Qualtrics, who really are just survey business. We have a lot of people that have worked in the industry from a number of different roles, even our clients that have then joined us, who really want to just show this is the way you can do stuff really well. This is how you do it. This is how you make everyone feel part of that journey. And I think Medallia is doing a really, really good job at that at the moment. So I'm really interested to see what the future, looks like here.
Alexander, talk to us about partnerships within Medallia. What are the different types of partnerships? I would imagine we're looking to get more distribution, get more sales, right? We always want that. But then are there also some technology partnerships? Do you guys have any kind of an offering where it's almost like the Intel Inside, where you guys are marrying your technology with other platforms? Or what do partnerships look like?
So yeah, Medallia is kind of a beast when it comes to the partnership side of the business. I predominantly work on the ISV side, which for me has actually been very interesting. But we have essentially like our services side of the business, and then we have the ISV side of the business, and we have an exclusively like reseller side of the business as well. That team's doing really well at the moment. So services, GSIs, solution integrators, implementation companies, that sort of stuff, always been really, really successful, along with agency partners as well. The reseller business is something relatively new in the company that's really setting the foundation and to, I think, take us to a completely different level now, which I'm really excited about seeing the results of that. And then on the ISV side, that I've always been pretty familiar with, it's just changing the mentality from, hey, here's an integration. I think the industry as a whole has that mentality that, hey, you work with a technology company, it's an integration and that's it. That's all that happens. So my side of the fence with the team has been exclusively around like, how do we turn that into replicable revenue? And how do we make sure that we have all the right tools and everything in place? And I think one of the things that I've sort of discovered coming to a bigger company, that, although you do have more resources and everything, sometimes there is a little bit of a, there's gaps or improvements around processes, collateral, all that sort of stuff. And that's actually been the really nice thing in this company, where it's almost kind of like you're a startup within a big company, because we've been given the reins to say, these techs that we need to add to our partner sort of ecosystem. These are the processes we want to build, the collateral, all that sort of stuff, and that's sort of what we've been doing for behind the scenes in the past like few months as well with everything. So we're doing really, really well. We have a huge portfolio of partners for the age of the company and where we're at the moment, but a big focus on things like the contact center as well. So it's an interesting place to be right now, to be honest.
You mentioned process and the way to scale. You guys are growing like crazy. I recently read an article that said that Microsoft's as a company is increasing their partnerships by 300 to 400 per day. Obviously, they're a behemoth, but it's still mind-boggling that they are, executing upwards of 400 net new partners per day. So that's a huge number. Speak to us a little bit, if you would, about just the importance of process. I mean, you have a background in training and, skilling different folks, but from a partnering perspective and the seats that you've been in, and you guys are continuing to grow, talk to us a little bit about, just the importance, or just some recommendations that you have for people from a process perspective, just to help and facilitate the company's growth.
Yeah, I think that article is very interesting as well, because it does make you think as well, how many partners are there in the world? When did they say enough is enough? We have too many partners. But no, I completely agree. I mean, I think the process is a key thing. And the thing that I've always instilled and believed, that scalable, replicable processes are important. You always, in every role, especially when you're dealing with people that are outside of your company and aren't in the know, like we always have this mentality that, oh, everyone knows everything, but it's not the case. So having, a benchmark of, this is how we do deal registration. This is where people can access collateral. Do we have collateral? When you're onboarding a new partner, do we have a simple way for them to have access to APIs or developer toolkits and stuff to sort of get them going? And I think they're the key things that I think as partner leaders, we're always trying to hit our goal. That's usually closed revenue, and you can't achieve that unless you have those things in place. So I think it's that sort of New York term of, if you see something, say something. And that's sort of been a key thing, which we've always instilled within our sellers, that if you're hearing this, let us know. We can add that to the priority list when it comes to sort of like integrations. That also then helps define where you want to go with partnerships, and new people that you want to go after. But just having a good internal network so you can help influence people to help you with processes, and just not focusing just on the revenue or just the integrations or just one thing. Like, you have to stay on top of the whole vision. Trying to tap little bits off as you go. I think that's been sort of one of the key things that a lot of us, and a lot of people I chat to in the industry, sort of realize as they're kind of getting into this space.
So the revenue is the outcome that we want, but there's so much plumbing and so many things, so many enablers, not just the education, but like you had mentioned, the different components, the marketing, the education, even from your partner's perspective. This world of partnering is just exponentially and infinitely more complex, because we're working with organizations from potentially all over the world, but they're definitely from other companies. They have their own processes, they have their own goals, they have their own priorities, they have their own cultures. It becomes so much more complex to work with them. But really, I love what you said, to paraphrase, you have to enable their success to get the results that you want, which is ultimately the revenue.
And that's actually an interesting thing as well, because I think, like you mentioned, it is the plumbing. You need those foundations there. And everyone has this dream of this sort of like glitzy, like, I don't know, this is the end result, but you need that. And it's almost like treating partnerships or an alliances team like a completely separate company. It's almost like you have to market your team. You need the collateral, you need the framework. It's enabling sellers that aren't your sellers to go off and do that. And I think a lot of people don't sometimes think about that. And it's one of those things that when you get down the road, it's like, oh, wow, I need to do X, Y, and Z. So I think having tools and resources and, things out in the ether to help people is being very, very, very valuable.
Something that I've really embraced lately is said that we should treat all of our employees as volunteers and work with them, develop those relationships, do that sort. Treat them like a person. I think as we move further into the future, we're seeing, partnerships are growing by 10x. Jay McBain from Forrester put something out, a few months back, and he's been talking about this for quite a while, is that as we look forward, the average company needs to increase their quantity of partnerships by 10x in the next 3 to 5 years, which is a staggering number. But then that has us really look at our partners almost as like a customer, or starting to treat them like a customer more than, frankly, how they have been treated in the past, which has not been all that great, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually interested in your thoughts on this as well, because I've over the years, when I've been dealing with companies, there's sometimes this mentality of, oh, you're not worthy enough to work with us as a partner. And there is this sort of take mentality. I don't know if you've sort of come across that in your time in the space as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So whenever I think about partnerships, the first place that my mind goes is a spectrum, or this kind of continuum of partnerships. And unfortunately, what we find, I think, on the supply chain management, the procurement side, and I think also in channel, that transactional side where it's just we got to make revenue. And that's kind of the end all be all. It's only about this transactional piece. We tend to take the relationship side out of it, and it just gets really binary. But what I like to see, and what I've tried to do, is even in those more transactional types of partnerships, they can still use the word trust, right? They can still be trust based. They can still be relationship based. And if we treat them more like a customer, like we would a customer, we find that we get a lot better results from them. And so I think we need to just kind of shift the mentality of that they owe us something and it's just zero sum, and really look at ways that we can both truly win and grow in this. And I think another piece that really comes into that is just looking at the alignment, the front end piece of that, regardless if it's a transactional partnership or something that is highly strategic, where if your partner fails, that means by definition you're going to fail, just because you're so independently connected on this really strategic initiative. But I think looking at alignment, and I think that as partnering professionals, we owe it not only to our own company and our own investors, but also to our partners, to spend more time on the front end. When I say the front end, I'll talk about pre-contract signature. Let's spend more time on the front end to really understand what is your culture? How do you guys do your thing? What is your strategic approach? So we're looking at that cultural alignment. We're looking at strategic alignment. And then the third piece of the puzzle is, what are the terms of the deal? What do we need to get out of this financially and otherwise? What do you need to get out of this financially and otherwise to stay committed to it? But are we even strategically aligned? So as we continue down this path, a year from now or 2 years from now, as best we can see from our crystal ball, are we still going to be running down that train track together and be parallel, where we can continue to provide value to each other? And I think so many times, executives all the way down, they say, or they see partnership, especially sales partnerships, the full variety of them, the sales partnerships, they see it as potentially a less expensive alternative to having a direct sales team.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
And so they're like, let's do this partnering thing because I think it would be faster, cheaper, easier. And then it's just about putting the partners in the vice and trying to just get this revenue out of them. But to go back to the conversation you and I were having earlier, most companies do a poor job of equipping their partners to be able to deliver on their behalf.
It's a really interesting thing. And there's a number of layers there to unpack, because I think there is equipping people to do their roles right, and I completely agree. That's a key point of it. But there's so many other things, in the sense of, like you were saying, I sometimes find it very hard to gel with certain people, and I find that if I can't compensate, and it's very transactional feeling, or like we're in a boardroom or something like that. Like, I want to be able to call somebody and say, "Hey, how's it going? How was your weekend? Listen, we've got this issue with this. Can you help us out? Or, hey, I've got an opportunity for you. You guys, if you take this, are you okay taking this call with people?" If somebody's like, "Well, we need this," and but it doesn't feel genuine. And I think there needs to be a genuine aspect to it. And that's what I really enjoy about my role. And I think why, not to toot my own horn at all, why people enjoy working with me, because, you know, at the end of the day, I am invested in those people and I do care about them. It's not literally about Medallia or Stella Connect. It's me. Like this is me, which is really weird to say. But having those things in place, but then also making sure when it comes to the alignment, like we use platforms, we use Crossbeam, but I know there's a number of other platforms in the market. And I think identifying, first of all, you know, what is your overlap when it comes to mutual customers? Like, first of all, can we validate this even makes sense? And then also from a pipeline perspective as well, because if you can't identify that and it's like, hey, maybe we should work together, you could just end up investing, you know, months of trying to develop a relationship and you literally get nothing out of it. And that's something I've actually had to deal with way more when we come to Medallia, because everyone's like, hey, you're a $600+ million company, and we want to work with you, because they want leads. And I get it. I was exactly like that when I was at Stella, but with, you know, larger goals and larger targets, there's always like another level you're trying to get to. So it's managing expectations, making sure you have the foundation, you have that genuine relationship building expertise, but then at the same time as well, that, you know, although you might have a reseller or a referrer, it might be an OEM like we have with our Voci Medallia speech product. It's like high school. Everyone has a different personality, and some of it might be a referrer, but it might be that they don't give you it in the same way that other people do. So it's understanding your customer at the end of the day, I think, is, like you were saying, really important.
Yeah. Great insights. Love that. Last question here for you, Alexander, before we let you go. Talk to us about the importance of having a network. Building a network, using a network, being a good networking partner, but just talk to us about the importance of network.
So great question. My favorite subject. It's actually a really interesting thing. When I was a startup at Stella, like I said before, I've always been pretty good with people, and I've always felt it's really important to make sure that you have people that you can, you know, lean on or ask questions with. And the more you know, the more pointed and then the more equipped you can be for different conversations. So I've always loved having, you know, people you can reach out to and say, hey, what about this? And then, you know, it helps you out. But my boss at Stella, a guy called Bill Hilliard, he was the guy that was just like, build your own brand. And that was one of the things that I think has allowed me to be in the position that I am today with, you know, a vast portfolio. A lot of people in the industry reach out to me about stuff, and I make it my point at least once a week to try and connect with somebody outside of the Medallia world, even outside of the partners we already have. I mean, I always meet new people, but if I can reach out to somebody that I've never met before and have a conversation about things that they're doing, it helps validate the issues that I might be having and the things that I'm seeing, but also share something could be really helpful to somebody and then share something back to me that's really helpful. So I've actually been, there's a number of different communities that I've been dealing with, but there's one that one of my friends was in called, I think it's Partner Leaders. And each week they'll essentially like dish somebody new out, and you get to meet somebody new. So I think it's really important. And I think being in this role, you can't just come in and be like, okay, I'm going to make partnerships happen. And then it's like, how do you do that? How do you connect with, you know, the Zendesks, the Salesforce, all these different like companies? You have to have that component of, you know, people, you know, it is now who you know, not as much as what you know. It's a bit of both, you know. So yeah, it's good. I think having the ability to learn off other people is very, very important, and it just makes you better at the end of the day. So yeah,
man, what great advice there. And it's, as you said, it's about relationships and building those relationships, having the trusted relationships, having the resources, tapping others with different perspectives, different experiences, and building that personal brand and building that that strong network takes years and years and years to do. So young professionals, get started.
Get in now, get it done. It will benefit in the long run.
Absolutely. Man, it has been such an awesome opportunity to chat with you here, Alexander. Thank you so much for spending your time with us, for spending, sharing your insights. And it's going to be awesome watching you continue to grow the team there at Medallia.
Appreciate it, Mark. Yeah, I'm really excited about all the things that you guys are up to as well. So thanks for having me. And yeah, excited to see what happens in the future.
Thank you.
Partnernomics Podcast is brought to you by Partnernomics. Learn how to leverage the power of partnership. To listen to more episodes of Partnernomics Podcast, visit partnernomics.com.